Welcome to Nkosi Talk Shows. Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Challenges we have had to overcome in 2020.
Find your own voice.
The world has become united by the unseen, knowing there are no guarantees for tomorrow.
Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Let the world hear your voice and be filled within.
For the day has come for you to be a great leader.
The time has come to break away from the pain, distraction, experience the unthinkable.
Find your own voice. Welcome to Nkosi Talk Show. Over to you, Amanda. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, my name is Amanda Carole. I'm the founder of Art Mindfulness Creativity. I also illustrate and write children's books. I am a teacher, and I'm coming to you from Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Over to you, Clara. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Clara Rufai. I'm a corporate lawyer. I'm also a coach, an author, a speaker, and a mentor, and I do so many things. I'm also the editor-in-chief of the Shine magazine and the creator of the Shine philosophy, and my passion is in helping people to shine their brightest with whatever they do.
Thank you so much, Clara. Over to you, Carole Ann. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yes, good afternoon. This is from London, so wherever anyone else is, morning or evening. And it's a beautiful sunny day today. Nice blue sky. So yes, as the writing facilitator, what I do is I actually assist soul-driven entrepreneurs in becoming more productive with their writing by getting them in touch with their deeper innate ability to write. But more importantly, they experience free-flowing writing. They experience an unlocking of the writer within, an unmuting of their story, helping them to show that vulnerability in their story and getting their book written, getting their story written, because you cannot publish what isn't written. And all of this has come about through my own journey of unlocking the writer within. So yes, I'm Carole Ann, and writer within, unlocking the writer. Sorry, the writing facilitator, unlocking the writer within. My mind just went completely blank for a moment, which often happens.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carole Ann. So I'm the only person who has not written a book here. You guys are writers. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys, for being powerful women who are writing and impacting the world. So our topic today is turning vulnerability into empowerment. So could you please explain our topic to our audience, Amanda, please?
Well, I picked this topic because of actually some of Brene Brown's work, because I think what she does is so important when she talks about vulnerability and the gift of imperfection, and in her book Daring to Lead as well. And so I don't know if any of you have ever watched her TED Talk on vulnerability, but she explains how we live in a very vulnerable world. And from my experience, when I've actually taken the step to become vulnerable with people, when I'm not hiding behind like who I want to project to the world, when I actually am truly authentically myself, that is when I found that people have opened up, and when I feel more connected to people, and when I feel more, and then that in turn, that vulnerability turns into empowerment. So for example, when I got divorced, at first I wanted to hide it. I didn't want to tell anybody. I deleted a bunch of people off Facebook that I thought would judge me. I was worried about it at work because I'm a teacher and I teach elementary school. So I thought the parents would judge me. And then what happened was kind of the opposite. As I started to become more open and more vulnerable about my divorce, people started to open up as well. And even the parents, because so many parents have been divorced in my classroom as well, they actually are more vulnerable with me, and they are able to actually like express their needs and wants and fears with me in a way that they wouldn't have been able to if I hadn't been like, I've been there. I know what you've been through, not in exactly the same way, but I can relate to you on a very vulnerable level. And that has just made my job as a teacher and able to empower and support other people. It also allowed me to write articles on divorce for people and on how you can turn your divorce into empowerment. And it also has allowed me to write a children's book on divorce to help empower children and parents to be able to open up the conversation on divorce and to know that they are loved, supported, and valued, and that maybe their divorce might actually turn into a good thing. And they may live in two loving separate homes instead of one dysfunctional one. And so the other time that I've become really vulnerable with people was when I start to talk about my anxiety and being on anxiety medication, and how through my 20s in university, I really struggled with being on anxiety medication, and I wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't tell anybody. But then once I started to open up to other people about it, they'd be like, oh yeah, me too. Yeah, I've been on that medication too, or whatever. And so just being vulnerable and being able to share that story with people makes them be able to deeper connect with you. And when you can share something really vulnerable, but the flip side to that is you can't be vulnerable with everybody, because you have to know which people will be open to your vulnerability, because some people are very numbed and will block you or push you away if you are vulnerable with them, and you don't want to welcome those people sometimes into your life. So it's important to, when you know that you want to be vulnerable, to set boundaries and look at specific people who may not may judge your vulnerability, and you want to bring people into your life that are going to lift you up from that vulnerability, and for you not to be scared to be vulnerable.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amanda. Me, I call it the lies I used to tell myself. Wanting people to see this Nomsa that wasn't authentic because I thought it was the right thing to do. That was 10 years ago. I call it the lies. Every time I try to go back there, I'm like, no, Nomsa, let people see the real you. That is not perfect. So thank you so much for that, Amanda. Clara, over to you, please. Anything you want to add for what Amanda just said?
The first thing I want to say is I think, Amanda, you do amazing work. I can see why you chose this topic. I mean, just listening to you talk about presenting divorce, something that not even adults want to embrace and freely talk about, but you've taken it and you're actually simplifying it and breaking it down to children in a way that they can see it as something positive, something they can embrace, that something good can come out of it, as you put it, two loving homes as opposed to one dysfunctional one. And I think that's really, really powerful, because even when I talk to my 10 and 13-year-old about, experiences they've had at school, possibly with friends that are from, divorced homes and all of those things, it really, really can change the child's perspective about what love is and what it means and all of that. So that's a powerful thing that you're doing. Really, really powerful thing. Well done. I just wanted to add, to what Amanda said, to just say that I do agree with her that vulnerability is something that is such a powerful tool. It is actually, if you ask me, the greatest unassuming tool, but it's the greatest, most powerful tool that you can find if you really want to connect with people in a way that makes sense. If you want your relationships and with the world and with other people to be like real, you have to show your weaknesses. Nobody wants to be around somebody who seems like they are perfect, not a hair in place. You actually begin to resent such people and you become suspicious of them because you think that's not true. That facade that she's putting on. It's got to be, it just cannot be true. It's not possible for everybody, you know, for somebody to be so perfect all of the time. So I really do believe, and I have instances and experiences in my life where I've seen how being vulnerable and being, as I call it, you know, emotionally naked with people, with the right people, as Amanda pointed out, you can't be vulnerable with everybody. But me having the courage to be emotionally naked with certain of my relationships with certain people in my circle has actually helped me to be a stronger person. So for instance, when I was dealing with the grief and the utter depression of losing my sisters, 2 sisters in a day, which by the way is one of the events that has marked me and has, you know, in some ways made me who I am, because I went into a spiral of depression, spiraling web of depression. And I felt like there was something wrong with me, like my family had done something wrong to deserve this kind of unfortunate incident happening to us. And what made it worse was that some people, you know, thought about it in a sense. I didn't like the sense of pity. I didn't like the fact that people were looking at my family and we were like sort of like objects of pity. Maybe that was in my mind, but that's what I thought. Come to talk about years later, how I've now realized that because I learned the lessons I was supposed to learn in that dark place, I've become this stronger person who is now, and I hate to use the word role model, but I can actually, it's almost like I've been given a ministry. I can reach out to people who are hurting, who are grieving, who have lost loved ones, and I can understand where they're hurting from, where they are, so that I can reach them in that place and sort of help them over the bridge, if you like, or just share with them in authenticity and in realness my experience and how I overcame my grief. So that's one area, or in one way in which I've been able to sort of use my vulnerability, my willingness to be open, my willingness to show something that hurt me or didn't make me feel my best, so to speak, but I've been able to then use it and navigate it and made it a tool that makes me a better person. I've been able to take ownership of my grief, of my situation, of my experiences. And so people are drawn to me because they know that they can get something from my experience and they can use that to, you know, navigate their own experience. So yeah, vulnerability is very, very important. And I see it as a tool.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Clara. Me, you can't see. I'm afraid you can't see my vulnerability. My partner was saying, my mentor was saying the other day, why when you pray, you don't pray like normal people? He said he did a demonstration for me. It was like in United Kingdom, we put our hands like this, Nomsa, and we go silent and we pray. I was like, no, I don't pray like that, because my vulnerability is with God. You know, I cry when I pray. I cry a lot in private, in a way that when I come to you, Clara, you'll be like, Nomsa, you are like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, because I've just told him to sort out my burdens and my... But before I used to be like you, where I used to blame. I used to be like, why my family, why me? So then I've realized that actually there's a big lesson that we are learning through these challenging challenges. So over to you, Carol Ann. Let's hear you, what you have to say.
Well, yeah. I like what Clara was saying about she learnt the lessons in those dark places, because actually, yes, it does give you that strength and that ability to then sit with people who are in that place without judgment, without trying to fix it or trying to stop them in any way. And that is a really powerful thing that you can give somebody, is that time, that space, and no judgment. And I know that that's been said several times when I've sat with people and they said, there's no judgment, you know, and they appreciate that, because when you're being vulnerable and open, you're opening yourself up to the possibility of being judged, of being criticized. And that's what being vulnerable is about. And So being able to be with somebody who can give you that space and not judge you, so you can really dive in there and explore it, you know, be with it, is a gift, and a gift that you can give people. And what Amanda was saying about being authentic. When you are authentic, then people they can feel that. They can smell it. When you're not being authentic, there is a sense, and so therefore people, it's like, well, can I really trust this person? Because they possibly don't know that there's stuff going on in the background that's not being spoken, but they get a sense of it. Because in authenticity, it's got a vibration. And so when you're truly authentic, people can know, there's a real strong knowing they can trust you. They can trust your word. And that again is very powerful. And for me to actually understand this word, vulnerability, has taken a long time. And I've hidden behind masks. Because I've not known what's been going on for me, I've not been able to express it. And I know that didn't help in my own marriage. I always felt that there was something that needed to be said, but we never seemed to go there, either of us, you know. And I certainly didn't. And it's only since I've been on this journey of personal development, self-discovery, this last 20 or so years now, that I can now sit with and say, okay, this is what's going on for me. Because actually there is strength, there's a power in that. Because actually what I came to realize was that something somebody said was that actually, if you speak it as it's your truth, it's the truth for you, nobody can question it. Because you're not actually saying this is true for everybody, because that's when they can question it and they can judge you and put you down. But when you say this is true for me, they can't question that, because that is your truth. And that is what is really powerful. So I welcome this exploration today, because it's something I go into a lot, and I know I need to open up more into for myself. But again, it's when people are writing their own story, being vulnerable is what stops them actually writing it. And that's where I can then help and hold that space for them to go there and write from there, because that is then what connects with their reader and potential client. And that really has some power. So yes, vulnerability. It still makes me go like this. It's like, oh, okay, what am I saying?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol. And I actually agree with you. You know, sometimes, like what Clara was saying and Amanda, you don't have to show people the character that they think you should have. If you love someone and you are surrounded by those people, people should be able to love you, even if you are vulnerable. They should be able to love you, even if you're going through some stuff. You should be able to. What I did, Clara, because we come from Africa. Sometimes in Africa people are very, very secretive. So I set up a group with my family. So what I do with my family, because we learn from each other when it comes to things. So when I finish my degree with psychology, I sort of set up the group. I added all my family members. So what I do is I talk about my problems deliberately. So at the beginning, my brother was like, why are you talking about problems? People don't need to know. I was like, so how are you going to get to know me if you don't know what I'm going through? So if in order for you to know me, you don't need to know the norms that you see on social media, dressing up and posting, and you all say I love you and this. I was like, no, I want you guys to know my problems, but I knew what I was doing anyway. So I post sometimes when I'm going through something, or I put it, I've got my brother as well, my other brother, he puts the words of encouragement, and when I'm going through something or when I've achieved something, I just put it in the group and motivate people. And at the beginning, I think they were confused, but now they get it, that you know what, we are normal people. I was teaching them that if you are going through something, show me what you're going through. Don't let me love you for that beauty that you're showing me. If I don't know what you are going through, how can I love you? Love, it means I have to love you. You have to share. You have to be able to say, I can share my secret with Nomsa, even if I don't have to force you to share your problems, but you have to be that person that says, I can actually talk to Nomsa about what I'm going through. So that's what I have done with my family, because people feel that they don't have to share their problems with other people when they are going through, like there's this depression and that anxiety that is going on. And basically it's a stigma for people. People don't want to talk about it. Because like Amanda was saying, people are judging me. I used to care 10 years ago, people judging me. But now I can tell you, I don't really care what people think about me. If I'm going through something, guys, on Ngozi Talk Show, I just let it all out. If I'm going through something, I don't want you guys to see this beautiful Nomsa that has it all figured out. That is a lie. So I don't know. Somebody take the stage. Amanda, take the stage, please.
I love how you say like that you don't want to come across as having it all together, because in my marriage, that's how it looked on social media and stuff. We had like a beautiful house, we'd go on nice vacations, and it all looked perfect from the outside, but really on the inside I was dying. And because it was so unhealthy, even though I know what it projected and looked like outside of that. And so I think sometimes people really need to look and realize that social media is so not real life unless people are showing the like how many takes it took to get this perfect picture of my baby and my beautiful like family, because it's not like, isn't like that. And as much as you want to be able to plan and want to be able, I think what Brene talks about in her book, The Gifts of The Gifts of Imperfection, is so empowering. I read that book a number of years ago, and it's still one that always like comes up when I know somebody is going through something. I'll be like, you need to read this book. It is so empowering. But also I know once I've become vulnerable with people reach out now to me for support. Like I had a friend from Vancouver reach out to me just this week saying friends of hers are getting divorced. How does she get my book? And I said, well, it's on Amazon. You can get like the book for kids on divorce on Amazon. But then I said, here I've written these articles for these magazines for adults as well. And so those might help. And she's like, I'm like, but feel free to reach out to me. I've been there. I know what people have gone through. But I've had people, because I can be vulnerable with people, that's how people will then also open up. Like I had someone that I met on an online dating site, but we never decided to actually date, but we're still friends. And sometimes we connect and talk just via like Facebook Messenger. And he's like, I don't know why I tell you the things that I tell you. And it's like, but I'm like, it's because I can be vulnerable with you and you can be vulnerable with me. And that's such an empowering thing, is to be able to be vulnerable. And even if you have people from your past that you've been able to be really vulnerable with, you can always go back and talk to them too. But you have to be selective with who you're being vulnerable with sometimes, because not everyone is going to be accepting of your vulnerability, because people numb themselves, and they want to come across as perfect, like Nomsa had said how she was 10 years ago. And I really think that we grow, and as we grow and we learn, we become able to be more vulnerable, able to be able to try new things and be scared about them, and also like even being on this talk show, being able to be vulnerable here. This is a very vulnerable talk show. I know 2 weeks ago, right in the middle of the talk show, I got a text that my grandma had passed away, and I was like, oh, that's being vulnerable right online, right in the middle of this, because I'm holding it together, but on the inside I'm not really holding it together right now. And I think we're supposed to be imperfect. We are supposed to struggle. That's how we learn. There's actually research on how to fail forward, and especially as a teacher for kids, we want kids to actually fail, because that's when they learn the most. When they get up and they try again and they try again and they try again, that's when we're actually learning so much more than if it worked perfectly the first time. And so, we also think like in terms of the power of yet. So I can't do that yet, but that's something I'm working towards. And I know too, even like people with anxiety like me, we can go backwards into that downward spiral so often, and you have to be very, very conscious of when that's happening, and then use the strategies that you've learned to help get yourself out of that anxious struggle. Because I know for me that is something that I'm really vulnerable with, and the fact that I can be vulnerable about anxiety and about how my brain spirals and about where I feel my anxiety in my body, which is, for me, it's right in my chest. I feel like there's a brick on my chest when I start to get anxious. But because I've been through that struggle, I'm able to find it right away, recognize my vulnerability, sit with it, and then find ways to get through it faster than I would have ever been able to in the past, when I didn't know how to deal with it or have the skills to deal with it. I think people who try to be perfect, it just doesn't work. They're like, no amount of Botox, no amount of plastic surgery, no amount of counseling is going to ever make you perfect. There's no one who's perfect. And I think we have to embrace our imperfectness. And also look at our friends and love our friends for their weirdness, because I love all the weirdos in my life, and that's why they're my friends, is because we know that we're imperfect and we embrace those imperfect things, but we also know which friends we can be vulnerable with, and which people are going to help us lift that vulnerability into empowerment, because there are people in your life who can help you lift that vulnerability into empowerment. And there's people in your life who will take that vulnerability and make you feel more vulnerable. And you want to surround yourself with people who are going to help you take that vulnerability and lift it into empowerment.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amanda, for that. Basically, it's very, very important who we surround ourselves with. And also, it's very, very important for you not to compare your life with somebody else, because you might see that picture that you see on social media and think that life is perfect, but it's not. So for me, if you see me posting pictures with my family, the pictures that like my daughter finished filming the other day, it has been a nightmare with the COVID test, going to London 4 days in a row per week, just being tested and doing all these things, running around, and you guys get to see the finished product. So that's what life is about. Life is about problems. And when I was divorcing 10 years ago, I remember I had never gone through stress before. And I remember ringing my GP, and my GP's, I'm like, it's an emergency. And when I walked in, and my GP was like, what's wrong with you, Noms? And I was like, something is not right. And I was like, what do you mean? And I was like, my head it seems to be taking me somewhere where I've never been. I need help. And he was like, what are you going through right now? So I explained, and that's when he was like, oh, okay, so you've had a shock. I was like, yeah. So and then I had to get some counseling, but for me, I never went to the stage of getting depressed, because I just acted very, very quickly. And when I was busy with the woman doing the counseling, and I was like, this is a subject that is very interesting, I got into psychology straight away. So it really, really helped me, that journey. Over to you, Clara, please.
That is so true, Nomsa. I mean, I'm really, really resonating with what you're saying and with what Amanda said as well. And really, honestly, and I'm glad that Amanda brought in Brené's name, because Brené Brown owns this topic, owns the topic of vulnerability. She's the one who said that vulnerability is the only, she didn't even say one of the bridges. She said it's the only bridge to connection. I say it's the only bridge to true connection. So I can almost boldly say that if we want to enjoy really meaningful relationships, sometimes it's not even about what the people take our vulnerability and do with it. Of course, you want to hope that the people you surround yourself with, as Amanda said, will take your vulnerability and uplift it into empowerment. But should they not do so, you've done nothing wrong. Don't knock yourself. You've done nothing wrong by wearing your heart on your sleeve, so to speak, or being vulnerable, because that's a form of release. And that means that you're being good to yourself by sharing. You ran, for instance, to the GP and said, I need help. You spoke up. So I do believe that this year on International Women's Day, the theme was, challenge. I remember writing a post on social media where I said that before you can challenge something, there has to be a speaking up. And most of the time, what we're dealing with in this world is that a lot of us suppress, we're afraid to be vulnerable. So we suppress the things we're going through. We suppress our pain. We suppress our anger. We suppress our, inefficiencies, inadequacies, or whatever it is. We want to present that, ice prince or ice princess image. I produce a podcast, and just like you said, you were talking about your daughter and all the tests and all the things that had to go on behind the scenes, and we're waiting to see the finished picture. But I remember recording episodes of my Shine Capsule podcast, and how sometimes I'd have to scrap it because I coughed in the middle of it, or I mispronounced a word, or something didn't come out right. Sometimes if it was just a stutter, I would own it and I would leave it be, because life isn't perfect. You stutter over your words, and I'm not an orator. I'm just somebody who wants to share a message from the bottom of my heart. So I would leave it that way. But sometimes there's just so many bloopers in one episode, in one attempt to record, that I would scrap it and start all over again. My point is this: by the time I release it, people hear a perfect podcast, but they don't know how do I put it, the how many takes I had to take and how many times I had to try to make it perfect. There are circumstances in life when it's okay to keep trying to be perfect, to do better, to improve, but it shouldn't be at the risk of us feeling. We shouldn't cease to recognize who we are. Sometimes you can over airbrush yourself that you don't even recognize yourself. We ladies who do makeup and all of those things, sometimes we do what we call a face bit. And when you've had your face bit, sometimes you stare in the mirror, you're like, is that me? Oh my God, my nose is in that, whatever. My lips don't, and you take off the makeup and then you're back at home with the real you. So what I would say is that in being vulnerable, so long as you can still, it's important to be vulnerable so long as you are comfortable with who you are projecting to the world. And that's attracting, the right people. I always say that our stories, and I'm not talking about airbrushed stories, the truth of our story, the good, the bad, and the ugly of our stories, we should tell them, and we should tell them boldly, confidently. And I say they're not for us, because when we speak our stories, no matter how bad or good or horrific or whatever, that something in your story will always connect with somebody. And those are the people you're meant to pull into your environment. Those are the people you're meant to serve. Look at Amanda talking about using her book and her experience. Not only is the book on Amazon, she's telling people, if you need to talk, if you need any more help, reach out to me. They know she's a resource to somebody now. They know they can find help with her because she's been authentic about her journey. So it's really, there isn't too much that you can say in favor of vulnerability and just being you, because then you don't have to, they say when you tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said the last time. So if you're being yourself, then you can just, coast through life, and relationships are easier and life is just that little bit more enjoyable, I think.
Thank you so much, Clara. I love it when you say, when you tell the truth, you don't have to think about it. That is really cool, because that's what I do. When I pray, I say, God, I quote every scripture and quote every scripture, and I say, you say this, you say this, you say this, and this is my character. If there's any part of me that does not please you, please do let me know. So this is my case that I'm bringing to you. But when I step outside, I'll be looking like a smile. I'm always smiling because I do all the crying, the book smashing. I smash the books when I don't feel too good. I smash the pillows when I don't feel too good. But if somebody sees me outside, they will think, oh, she's a coach, she's got it all figured out. But I haven't. I have figured out how to deal with the situation, but I'm still the same person, still a human being. It's just like I've learned how to let it all out and smash it out. Carol Anna, please take this stage.
Oh gosh, yeah, there's so there's a couple of things that sort of I've heard in there, and one of the things is about holding it in and not letting people know what's going on for you. And that doesn't allow them to help you. And what Clara was saying, something about, or was it Amanda? Saying about struggling on the inside. I think it was Amanda, struggling on the inside, and people weren't aware. And this was very much so for me when I was head of department many years ago. And I was struggling to keep going, but somehow they didn't seem to get it. All they saw was this perfect facade that I was coping. And I go, but I'm not. And I thought I was asking for help, but they didn't get it. So I clearly wasn't communicating what was truly going on for me. So I didn't get the support that I was really wanting. And all I could see was that some other people were getting the support that they wanted. And I'm thinking, well, how does that work? What are they doing that I'm not doing? And I really couldn't understand it at the time. I know now what it was. It's just that I was really good at putting up this facade of coping, of appearing to have it all together. But inside, I certainly wasn't. I was literally struggling to keep things going and to know what I was doing. Everyone else thought I was doing a great job and seemed to know what I was doing. So one of the key things from that, what I learned, is that understand what's going on for you and be able to find the language to express it so that other people can get it, especially if you're wanting support and others just don't really get what you're going through. It is being able to explain it in a way that others get. And I guess that I wasn't allowing people in. I wasn't in my language. I was still putting up barriers. I was not being open and vulnerable enough for them to really come in and support me. So yeah, really getting to grips with the language and being able to be that open and really say, no, look, this isn't working for me. I'm really not coping, but this is the help I want. And I couldn't even explain what help it was I wanted, So it is being really clear on what's there for you. And yeah, being able to speak with somebody that can get you and that can support you. But what Amanda was saying about wanting students to fail so that they can learn from it. And that is great. And I'm going to say a but, which completely negates what was said. Too often, when students fail, we do not give them the resources or the encouragement to come back up again. We're so quick to criticize and to put them down and say that's not good enough, rather than saying, well, what can you learn from that? And to help them to realize that failure is only feedback. And there is no such thing as failure. It's just you haven't got where you want to be in that moment. You've just failed to achieve that. It isn't that you are a failure yourself. And I remember many times with my students when they sort of came up from the primary school, having to encourage them to show me all their crossings out. I say, look, it doesn't matter if you've gone wrong. I want to see that, because then I get your thinking. I can see where you've gone. And if you've ended up with the wrong answer, I can help you. If you crossed it all out or rubbed it all out, I've got no idea. All I can see is this answer that isn't correct. And I don't understand your train of thought. But it was something I really had to undo, because it's almost like they had to show their perfect answer to start with. They couldn't show all their flaws. It had to be perfect from the beginning. And so it is something that we really need to encourage people and children to do, is to show all the steps where they've fallen down, where they've made the mistakes, where they haven't quite got it right. Because as Clara was saying, it takes many takes before you get that perfect one. And if all people see is that perfect one, they think, well, I've got to get it right first time, because she's got it right first time. But if you've shown them all of the steps that you've taken, all the times you've had to correct it because it wasn't quite right before you've got it right, they go, oh, it helps them to see that it was a journey. It is a journey. It's a journey of exploration, a journey of adventure, to get to that place where it's perfect, or it's correct, as you want it. It's as you want it. So it is really important that we do encourage students to own where they've failed, where they failed to reach or achieve what it is they want to achieve in that moment, and accept it, acknowledge it, and go, okay, this is all right. It does not mean I'm a failure. It just means that I have something to learn here right now in this moment. And that is the greatest lesson that you can have, because life will knock you down. When you go out in the world, you want to set up a business, you want to have a job, life knocks you down. It doesn't always work out as you think it's going to work out. You get married, that falls apart, It isn't where you thought you were going to go, but it's how you pick yourself up, how you learn from that and move forward. So it's an adventure. Treat it as an adventure and enjoy the adventure.
Thank you so much. I like Amanda and Carol Ann, where you guys put the children. My daughter, I think that was a year and a half ago, and she went to school and they took the exams. She got 78%. She's one of the top students, and she get 78%. Apparently she started crying, and the teachers ask her, why are you crying? And she says, I feel at this moment that I'm not good enough. So the teachers, luckily it was close to parents' evening, so they waited until we came. So the teachers wanted to see how actually as parents, how are we reacting to this situation. So they were like, this is what happened. So I said to the teachers, how did she behave when she got 78%? And the teacher explained how she cried, and straight away I looked at my daughter and I was like, Hope, what do we do at home? What does 78% mean? And she replied and said, 78% means I've worked very hard and I need to give myself a big credit. So I was like, so what did you do that for? And she explained that because some of the kids were saying this and this. And then I explained to the teacher my principles at home, and I was like, My children are not competing with anyone. When she comes here at school, I'm handing over to you to look after her as your child because I'm not there. So what you need to aware is I don't agree with this, what she was doing. So now the teachers was like, I'm glad that you're on our side. We don't agree with it either. The reason is because some children, their parents are actually on their back to say, because when you go to a top school, you have to give top marks. You have to be known as a parent who has a child with top marks. So the teachers were like, we don't agree with you parents, how you are raising the kids. You want the kids to get 100%. So when a child is behaving like this, we have to treat this carefully to see how a parent, what does a parent think about it. So I'm glad they are on our side. So I was like, I don't want her going through that. She has to get 100% all the time because life is not like that. So I explained to the teachers, and last week they started from lockdown. They gave them exams again, and she got the same thing. But then she said to the teacher, they sorted it out with the teacher, and the teacher looked at her and said, do you want to take your exams again? And she was like, yeah. And then she came back yesterday. She was like, I got good marks. I'm happy. And I was like, so why are you not happy with the 60 or 70%? And she was like, it's because of my level. Honestly, she's 14 years old. She had to go and watch the Oxford student, their online learning. Apparently they do the learning so you can just go and listen, get some answers. So I said to her, it's good that you are doing all these things, but you don't feel like you are being pressured. And I was like, you don't have to feel that way. You have to give yourself credit, getting up and going to school and doing all the hard work. 70%, 80%, 100%. Sometimes the children who get 100%, they don't make it. I didn't get 100%. Over to you, Amanda. You are a teacher.
Yes. I always think with teaching, we want to take kids from where they are as far as we can, right? And so there are kids who will get 100% at the start and not even try. And those are the kids that I'm like, okay, we need to push you further. And then there's kids who can barely write a sentence, and then by the end of the year can write like 10 sentences, and they've made so much growth. So I always look at it as from a point of growth for them, and how far can we push them to grow, not necessarily did you get 100%, because that doesn't really matter. Everybody comes in at different places and they learn at different rates. And so one thing that I find really hard as a teacher is marking on that, because we have to follow like grade level, and like someone who's maybe not meeting grade level expectations yet is working their butt off. Those kids, I'm like so much more like, come on, you can do it, this is amazing. And like, but then they see their other friends writing so much more or doing so much better on math tests or whatever. And what I would always say to them is like, we just are focusing on ourselves, and we just want to get you as far as you can go. It doesn't matter what anybody else got. It matters if you're improving and if you're taking the steps to improve, because there are kids that can just like do nothing the entire class period and then scribble down the assignment in like 30 seconds, and they hand it in, they're meeting grade level expectations, but they didn't even try. Whereas there are kids who work the whole time and we're really focused and we're doing their best work and they're meeting grade level expectations. And I would always rather work with those kids that are trying their hardest the whole time than those kids that scribble something down in 30 seconds. And so I really think too that school is a hard place to be vulnerable, because there's so much of that industrial complex still in our schools. And now schools are starting to look more at mental health, but we're still marking and assessing on really outdated concepts. And so I struggle with that as a teacher, how we have to assess on outdated concepts, but we are starting to see that shift to the focus of mental health and the focus of collaboration and the focus of how we can work together, and how kids who have those skills to collaborate are actually, when we go out into the world, doing better than those kids that get 100% on the test.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Amanda. I'm gonna give it over to you, Clara. What's your own opinion on this one?
You know, it's really interesting. I'm glad I'm sitting here because I have children of school age, right? And I find that most of our vulnerabilities come from expectations around us, of family, of friends, that the world even puts on us. You know, it comes from the little boxes that they make for us and say, Clara, you have to fit into this box. Nomsa, this is you, this is where you need to be. And that's not where I need to be. I can make my own rules. I can take ownership of my life. But then the entire system, the entire social system, as we grow as children, all of us have suffered from that injustice. They force us into these little boxes and they make us go in there until we come to think or come to believe that this is where I need to be. I just need to be in this triangular box or rectangular or square box or whatever shape the box is that I find myself in. So that when you grow into, as you grow older and you come into adulthood, it becomes so difficult for you to unlearn. That's why it's a real thing that you need to actually sit with, you know, consultants and coaches and therapists and things like that sometimes to unlearn the things that we've learned, because the world has told us this is how it ought to be. So imagine my child, maybe 10-year-old, 13-year-old, being told, oh, you're no good at math. You need to improve in maths. And I believe in improvement, right? I actually believe that perfection doesn't exist. It's a myth. And the only thing that exists is transformation, daily transformation, so that every day, in every way, you're stretching yourself. And as you said, you know, Nomsa, the only person you should be competing with is yourself. Just you trying to be a better person than who you were yesterday. It's not about dancing to anybody else's drum beats. It's about singing from your own song sheet. It's about doing the dance of life that you were created to do. Because if you're copying somebody else's dance steps, you are going to get it wrong. Maybe you were meant to be doing a reggae, and instead you're doing a salsa or you're doing a waltz. You won't get the dance steps right. But if you're dancing in your truth, and this is what Caroline was saying, in your truth, it's not a universal truth. It may not be true for you or for somebody else, and I don't care. But this is my truth. This is what I know. This is my lived experience, you know, then that's a more powerful place. So I find that as parents, we have a role to play in making sure that the vulnerabilities that society is just ever so, it's not even subtle, it's there, right? How many of the skills and things that we learn in schools do we end up using? Seriously, not many of them. You find that as an adult, you have to relearn. If I need to calculate 5,000, my 5,000 plus 28,930, I just get out my calculator. I get this little baby called this, I get my smartphone out or something and I use the calculator. But I would spend years being told, let me tell you, I actually wrote a poem about it. I spent years in primary school being ashamed of myself because I was no good at math. I was no good at chemistry. And I felt so, literally when the math teacher walked into the class, I just would sort of like cringe in my seat and hope that she didn't call me or say, I would fall asleep in maths class. I felt so ashamed for years, only for me to realize that actually maths is for somebody else. And for me, writing poetry, just as an example, writing books, writing little inspirational pieces, limericks, writing just my thing. That's where I shine, which is why it's important for everybody to realize what their shine factor is and to shine with it. Just shine the spotlight on your brilliance. Let Nomsa shine the spotlight on what makes her brilliant, what makes her unique. That's the only way that we can create a world full of fulfilled people. When we talk about SDG, you know, United Nations goals, goal 7 and 35 and whatever, all it takes, the world is made up of human beings. Every one of us is happy understands who we are, where we're going, what we have in our hands to serve the world. I'm happy with my life. I don't want to be like Nomsa. Nomsa doesn't want to be like me. There's no envy, there's no jealousy. We're just happy. And there will be no global wars. There will be no killing or hatred or whatever. All of us are just happy in our space. I know it sounds romantic and impossible. That's what I dream about when I think about, oh, what if the world was perfect? How can we make the world perfect? Those are the things. If I had a magic wand, that's what I would make. That's how I would make the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Clara. And before I go to Carol Ann, Clara, those people that you were hiding, are you still in touch with them?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, my God.
What do they think about you now?
You know what? They now envy me.
See?
Because way back when it was the other way around, I felt like, how come she finds it so easy? She knows all the sums and she knows. And I was almost like a dullard when it came to mathematics. Seriously. I got the worst grade ever. I don't want to name the grade, but I got the worst. And then years later, I've come into my own. I'm doing my own thing. I'm shining in my authenticity. And they are looking in and they're saying, wow, we always knew you would do this and that way back when we were in school. Well, I didn't see it. So thank you for saying it. So yeah, that's really funny.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Clara. Before I go to Carol and Amanda, I know you have to go. Any words of encouragements before you go, please? I'll come back to you, Carol Ann.
I think just embrace your vulnerability and find ways and people to surround yourself with that are going to help lift you. Because once you start to embrace your vulnerability and embrace your imperfectness, sorry, my daughter's really being a struggle right now. We have to get to school. And that you can find empowerment through your vulnerability.
Thank you so much, Amanda. We'll see you next week. Bye. Over to you, Carol Ann, please.
Wow. You know, when I hear somebody say that they felt ashamed and they wanted to hide because they couldn't do maths, that makes me really sad. But I totally get how you felt with maths, because that's how I felt with English and with writing. And words for me were a nightmare. They just never cooperated. I struggled to find the words I wanted to say because I knew what I felt, or I sort of could feel it inside, but somehow words wouldn't come. And it's only through my journey of personal development and self-discovery, and I've now unlocked that writer within. I've now discovered that words are within me. They can come. I can sit with what I'm feeling and I can find the words now to say what I want to say. It's still not very quick. I hear other people that just go boom, 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 and outflow their words, and I'm thinking, oh, I wish I could think that quick. But what I have to do is acknowledge that I am a lot quicker than I used to be. And for me, what I've realized actually is that by working on my weakness, what wasn't a strength for me has helped me to find strengths and gifts within myself that I didn't know I had. Does it mean that my ability with maths has gone down? No, that's still there. That still shines. And as I was saying just recently, I've just enjoyed supporting my grandchildren in lockdown with their maths. I've had a whale of a time. I'm really sad they're back at school now. It's like, oh, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it really reignited my passion for maths, because I'd sort of, I guess I'd put that to one side and I'd lost connection with it. But we all have that ability within us. And as I say, the thing with maths is that we're very often asked to do something that we're not ready to do. And it is a building blocks. And if you don't have the basics, if you can't get the basics of the numbers, how they work together, it is difficult to build on, because you're still struggling in your mind to get past that question of, well, how do I do that? So you can't actually hear what the question is or move forward with it, you know. And even sitting with my grandson, there was some of the maths that he was going through, and I was sitting with him. I could literally feel his brain go like this. And I'd say, okay, you've had a bit of a brain fart, you know, because he just shut down. He wouldn't speak, he wouldn't talk. His whole energy went vroom. And it wasn't until we got moving again and then could talk about it and then move through that his understanding then started to come, because actually he could do it, but there was something, just one thing that he couldn't get beyond. Once you can go back to that and unpick that and understand it, the understanding comes. And we are much more capable than we realize that we are. And I know I hear a lot of adults saying, oh, I couldn't do maths at school. But I look at the job that they're doing and I'm thinking, but you're using maths. Just like that, you're using it, you know, but in their mind, they're not good at maths. And so we get stuck with that. So it's recognizing that. So, yeah, Clara, I embrace that feeling you had at school and that younger you, and send her lots of love.
Honestly.
Because actually maths is the most amazing subject there is. Numbers have always cooperated for me. And it wasn't until I actually did an English language A-level that something I thought I wasn't capable of doing. And that was only about 16 years ago, 17 years ago that I did that. That I really got people struggle with maths. Because when you really understand something like that, and it comes to you that quickly, you really can't understand someone's struggle to that depth. So when I was going through that struggle with doing the English language A-level, and every week I would go in and ask the same question about, what does that word mean? You know, like adjectives and, you know, all those grammar words. And even now that sometimes I go, what does that word mean? And I have to look it up. But you know, hey ho. I don't mind saying that now. I don't feel, I guess there was a level of shame in there that I hadn't realized, that I didn't know what these words meant. Every week I would have to, when I went in, the lecturer would have these words up on the board and I go, what does that word mean again? You know, and I'd write it down. And even when it came to sit the exams, I wrote the words out and I have them on the wall so that I could really get a picture and put words around it. Because for me, it's about bringing them to life, giving them some movement, some identity. Whereas numbers, they've got movement. Other numbers move around to form that number, to explain it in some way. So now I'm quite happy to look up a word, see what it means, look at other words that, you know, synonyms, that's right, to really get a flavour and a feel and to get a picture for that word and truly understand it and be able to then use it. So I'm really enjoying that exploration of words now. So, Clara, maybe you'd like to explore number a bit more?
Thank you so much, lady.
I felt in that time, I felt like, you know, it was draining my head of all serum. Like my maths teacher must have thought I was a strange teacher. And I didn't really care. I just could not demystify maths and figures. But talk about words. I always thought of myself as a scribe, a writer, you know, somebody who loved to play with words, to dress them. So that's my shine, really. And it's okay to admit that you're not going to be as good figures. I'm not going to be as good as Caroline in math with figures and all of that, but that I own my playing around with words and things like that. And that's why I always say what's important is actually today, I just want to take that word vulnerability, pull it back a bit, and instead offer people another word, authenticity. Because if you are living in your authentic self and just showing up, what's on all, oh, I've got a pimple here, oh, I've got a scar here, and it's all part of who I am. You know, perfect imperfections, as Amanda said, that's the beautiful way to live life because you are free. It's about your personal brilliance, isn't it? Not anybody else's. Not because someone has given you some kind of standard to live up to. This is me. This is my best. Yesterday, I wasn't even this good. Oh, you should have seen me yesterday. I didn't know 1 + 1. Today, I know that 1 + 1 is 2. And that's good enough for me. I don't need to know the algebraic formula or anything like that. 1 + 1 is 2. That's my story and I'm sticking with it. But yeah, we joke about it, but it is so, so important to just recognize your weaknesses, stand up in strength in spite of your weaknesses, and just be the best that you can be wherever, you know, you show up in life.
Thank you so much. My neighbors, they're banging, so you might hear the noise. I don't know what they're doing. So thank you so much, Clara. I agree with you. You know, like myself, I'm a person that I'm very, very quiet. I don't show people my true self. I let people guess, but people intend to. Even when I'm doing something, when you hear me speak, that means it's done. So I tend to go quiet and do my things, and then I'll hear people saying, "Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this?" So I'm like, that's who I am when I'm doing things like you are saying at school. Like when I met you, I wouldn't think that's how you were, because you are this amazing person. So I wouldn't think that you struggled at school. For me, when it comes to schoolwork, I was not brilliant. My sister, they were the top students, top maths student in the class. I was in the same class with my sister, my older sister, because we are 1 year apart. And my older sister, she was a smart girl. I've got 2 older sisters, and other siblings, they were smart. Me, I was not the smartest, but when you give me brain, I work things out with the brain and this and this and this. When I go on stage, I shut people up with the music. So that was me. But I wouldn't, when it comes to school, honestly, my family, because I lived with my dad and my mom was married as well. So there are things that I used to do with my granddad. He used to teach me. I wouldn't talk about it to my mom's family. I just go quiet. And when I came to the UK, when I start playing football, when I start doing this, and my family are like, what now? I'm like, my granddad, I didn't learn it from the UK. I learned it from home. That was my granddad teaching me. But because I'm quiet, I'm not used to, you know, like when you're growing up as a child, people have to show off and they have to do this. For me, I was a child that loved to get dirty. I walk in barefoot. I do this, going outside in the mud, doing all these things, learning about the nature. I love the nature. So that is the kind of a person that I was. And sometimes, and then now that I do things, and even here in the house, I do things, and they're like, why are you can you do that? I'm like, yes, I can do it. Everybody's capable of doing things, learning. So I was like, yes, I learn. Even sometimes when I'm on my computer, sometimes I'm busy learning, and I'm busy learning about everything. When I started my company, when I launched my company, my website wasn't that brilliant. And you guess what? People used to send me messages and saying, oh, before you can launch your website, why don't you just make it professional first? But I had tried 2 people, but because people are very, very judgmental, so that's why I stopped worrying about people. People are very judgmental. But then I was like, when you are looking for the designers, I'd looked for different designers and paid money, and they were not producing what I want. And that's when I found somebody, and then I said, can you do this for me? This is what I need. And he was like, oh, sure, yeah, I can do that, but it's going to cost you. And I was like, I don't care. Please do the work as long as what I want. And it was that moment when I started looking back with my business and the journey that I had taken. People judging, even on social media, when I post something and somebody will reply, like in my local area, don't post this, post that, because they can see that I'm new to what I'm doing. So, and then I followed a 50 Cent, and 50 Cent was like, he's saying, when you post on social media, listen to him. He was like, whatever you post on social media, make it genuine, make it relate to you. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take his advice. And since I take his advice and I do that, I've never changed. I didn't change because of people commenting and judging. I didn't change my style. I kept my style. I kept my personality. I kept my business, how I advertise it. And every time I enter every year I enter the a matchmaking award, and they're like, they always come back and say your social media is bonkers, and we can connect with you. It shows that you're not hiring somebody because when everything is done professional is boring. The guy said to me, they deal with the media, and he was like, when we go to your social media, we relate to your story. When we go to the events, I take pictures, I put them up and write a story, funny story about it. And it was like, it's like when I'm following you, I'm following a true authenticity person. But when I'm doing it, I just do it because I'm bonkers, basically. I don't want to be like anybody else. So sometimes, I don't know, you've seen my pictures, I close my eyes. That's what I'm feeling that day. And I post it on my personal page. And that is Nomsa. That's what I'm feeling that day. Over to you, Carol Anna, please, if you can. Over to you, Clara, before I go to Carol Anna, if you can give words of encouragement to our audience before we leave, please.
Okay, so what I do want to say is that, people need to give themselves the freedom, yeah, because I'm not sure how to put this. In a sense, we're all born with that freedom, but then fear of judgment, pressure from family, societal expectations, the way we were brought up, our needs, our wants, our lacks, whatever it is, everything just conspires to just shrink us. And most of us are now afraid to take center stage in our own story. And taking center stage in your own story is that you put it all out there, warts and all. As I said before, scars and all. I did a podcast episode where I talked about how your scars beautify you. Because when people think about scars, they think about something that should not be. Look, I've got an interesting scar here. They think about things that are ugly, a disruption to the skin or, something. But your scars are part of your shine story. They combine and connect together because there's a story. There's a story behind every scar. I could sit here and tell you how I got this scar, or indeed this one here. We all have to be real and true to who we are. That's the only time you can say you're really living your life so as to impact others. We use this big word. People say, oh, I'm a social influencer, and all of that. All it means is that your life is influencing somebody. And you don't have to influence 1 million people or even 100 people. You only have to be the reason why somebody, just one person says, because of Nomsa, that girl's crazy, but I like the way she doesn't give a hoot. I like the way she just speaks her mind. Oh my God, she's a hoot. I love her. And before you know what is happening, you become the reason why somebody refuses to give up. You become the reason why somebody says, I like how she does what she does. There's just something about her, you know. And that is what life is about. You have influenced somebody else's life. You have caused them to think, hey, if Nonsa can do it, maybe I can. How is she so confident? How is she so comfortable in her own skin and just doesn't give a hoot? And I'm sitting here worrying about what A is saying and B is saying, and I can't even make up my mind who to listen to. See how noisy social media alone is, not to talk of the media, yada, yada, yada. Everybody has an opinion. This is how you should do this. This is how you should do that. These are the processes. These are the steps, five tips to do this, 15 ways to do that. Who cares? Go with your gut. Just aim for personal freedom, personal brilliance. You cannot go wrong. Why? Because you are boss and CEO of your own life, and you are making the rules. If you're making the rules and you're following your own rules and you're living your true, authentic life and sharing your story without apology, girlfriend, boyfriend, you're okay. Nothing can touch you. And that's where I'm going to leave this conversation right there.
Thank you so much, Clara. Thank you so much. I hope our audience are listening, because this caring about what people think, it doesn't get you anywhere. Honestly, it doesn't get you anywhere. You shouldn't care about what people think. So you know what I do, Clara? I ask my parents, my dad, my mom, what do you think about this? If my mom is happy, if she's not happy, I ask her why, because I need to know. And then she never said she's not happy, and actually she's bonkers like me. I think that's where I get it from my parents. So as long my parents are happy, and I know I can't be 100%, I can't be that perfect child that they want. As long I'm happy as well. I don't know, there's a guy that I found on YouTube as well. He was saying, don't stop worrying about what people think. Make mistakes, learn from them. You know, from this Ngozi talk show, I've learned so much. Really, really so much. I was broadcasting on live, Facebook Live before, then on Zoom, then now we're on Restream. Sometimes I broadcast on OBS, and one day I was broadcasting on OBS on my own, and the OBS software, I don't know whether you know about OBS, it just fell into 3 pieces, and I was like, what is going on? Where are the pieces? Where are they gone? And I called Jason, and I was like, how do I find it? And he was like, go to this, go to this. It does that sometimes. It goes, it disappears, and all it will be like 3 pieces, and the other pieces gone on from the computer. So I was like, do this, do this. So I'm learning. It's a learning curve every single day. And do you know where I learn from? From you guys. Making mistakes and not knowing it all, and learning from each and every one of you.
So true.
So I hope the audience are listening. Learn, surround yourself with the right people, learn from people, and then be who you think you should be.
And we're learning from you as well, Nomsa, so much.
You'll be amazed at how much I'm learning. Yesterday, 2 weeks ago, I was with Nadia. She was doing workshop. I was there. And Shana, she's doing an event, 5 days. I'm there. I just want to learn. The next thing of I know it all, I don't. So I just want to learn. I learn from you guys. Over to you, Carol Ann, please. Carol Ann, words of encouragement before we leave, please.
I'd just like to say I actually did pass that English language A-level. Having said that, I sat it. I didn't actually say, but I did actually pass it. I was like, wow, you know, like, yeah. So, yeah, I found a quote which it follows on from what Clara was saying beautifully, and I think would really round up this conversation. It's Mark Coleman who writes, "Make your heart as vast as space, so big that nothing can harm it. When our hearts are that wide, it is as if the judgments are ripples on water, flowing away and leaving no trace. This is what vulnerability makes possible. It allows the natural strength of the heart to emerge. So I leave you with that.
That is powerful, Carol Ann. So thank you.
Welcome to Ghosty Talk Shows. Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Challenges we have had to overcome in 2020.
Find your own voice.
The world has become united by the unseen, knowing there are no guarantees for tomorrow.
Lead from within.
Find your own voice.
Let the world hear your voice and be filled within.
For the day has come for you to be a great leader.
The time has come to break away from the pain, distraction, experience the unthinkable.
The time has come for you to break away from the pain and find your own voice. See you tomorrow, everyone, and live with grace. God bless you.